When I bought the KK2 Pro a year ago, I felt overwhelmed and thought this controller was too much. So no, I'm not particularly a fan of it. It's good, but it never was great to me. Since then, I reviewed countless controllers and bought even more. So getting into the KK3 Max was a great opportunity to revisit and recollect my thoughts on this brand and their flagship line of products. Hi, I'm Clef and you're watching GameTech Talk. Later in the video, we'll address questions I received from many of you, so make sure to watch till the end to not miss a single detail. Be warned, GuliKit controllers are known to be very densely packed, and this one is no exception, so I'll divide the video in 4 categories: outside and inside, software, using it, and questions from viewers. This review is designed as a complementary piece to my original hands-on, which I recommend watching for a more rounded review. I'll put it up for you to bookmark if you wish, but if you prefer not to watch it, rest assured that this piece of content still covers the important most aspects while simply expediting information on some of them. So let's jump in. It comes in 3 colors, gray inspired from the iconic SNES one, white and black. Addressing the ABXY, these buttons feel and sound much like they are membrane, but according to GuliKit, they are very much on tactile units. I'm conflicted because either this is magic or they encapsulated tiny membrane units in a tactile looking receptacle. By the way, it seems this time around that the replacement buttons are always part of the deal, but I recommend always checking the description if you buy one yourself. A key feature of this bad boy are sticks, as they are all sensors, which in a nutshell means it uses magnets to do everything you'd expect a stick to do. The benefits are very low risk of drift, improved durability, tighter precision, and nearly no dead zones. In fact, GuliKit was effectively a massive disruptor in the game controller market because they were the ones to initially introduce this technology in a modern gamepad. I specify modern because the tech did exist already, but they were the ones to decide that there was a market for that solution, and boy, were they right. Also, they manufacture their own stick modules and is also the brand that makes Hall sensors for Steam Deck add-ons or even Joy-Cons. Anywho, enough with the story time. The same tech that powers the sticks also powers the triggers. Using Gamepad Tester, which you'll see a lot of in this video, you can also see that the analogs have impressive accuracy, but also look how little unused radius there is. Same goes for the L2 and R2. New to this line of product is an hair trigger switch. It reduces the travel distance, making them feel and operate as a button instead. On the back sits 4 coves that lets us install metallic paddles that are used to double down on buttons you use the most. On top is 1 pairing button and another that lets us change the controller type between Nintendo Switch, PC, Android, iOS, and macOS. Now let's talk about what's inside. It features a 950 mAh battery, which GuliKit claims will net you anywhere between 15 to 28 hours between full charges. The duration depends on features being active or not, such as backlighting, vibration, and turbo. If you're into gaming peripherals, especially in the PC space, you will have heard of 1000 Hertz pulling rate, and this controller supports it, which, not gonna lie, is pretty cool. Now, for drama effect, say we try to make a circle in a millisecond. That circle might come out more diamond in terms of reading based on how fast the axis data is being pulled, which is the pulling rate. Now the question then becomes, does it feel that much better in real world usage? While it is factually superior and more precise, the vast majority, to not say all, would require super power reflexes to fully take advantage of that feature. To me, it's the kind of tech that speaks more to building patterns and second nature than it does actively altering anyone's decision. In other words, I don't see an immediate difference, but nonetheless, I welcome this change. If I was in a competitive space, I might tell you differently. By the way, that feature is only supported when using the included dongle. Bluetooth does not support the increased polling rate. Another cool spec of GuliKit's latest controller is the rumble motor. They use what is called a maglev vibration motor, which according to their own website is capable of producing HD rumble, much like the Switch Pro controller, but also regular rumble. As you may know, HD rumble definitely is more nuanced and detailed, despite regular rumble still being very capable of packing a punch arguably more even. We'll touch more on those features in the last portion of the review. And last but not least, much like its predecessor, this product has onboard software to adjust a plethora of features and settings, which brings us to the second portion, the software. I feel no shame in saying that this is my biggest gripe from the KK2 Pro, and it remains my biggest gripe with the KK3 Max. And look, I expect a lot of you to throw me rocks in the comments, but here it goes. There are too many features on this controller. You heard me right, too many. Now, that pain point could be alleviated if only GuliKit bothered to have an accompanying software to make those edits, but they don't. So my first advice is don't lose your manual. Now, in spirit of not having this review last 30 minutes, I will list the features with the shortcuts to make them, but I'll leave it to your logic to understand what they do. Calibrating joysticks and triggers, calibrating gyroscope, set motion aim assist for PC, clear settings, stick sensitivity, light brightness, D-pad direction mode, set turbo, swap ABXY layout, adjust vibration, back button configuration, autopilot function also named macro. Do you see what I mean? Like, who even remembers all these shortcuts? And no, I don't feel like messing up all my other settings while trying 4 different combinations before I find the right one. So to me, using this controller to its full potential is impossible if you don't keep the manual at bay. And that is what I have a problem with. Amongst the question I received, one from user Zevin Rinson, was to compare it to the 8-bit Do Ultimate. In feel, I prefer the KK3 Max, but all those features I just mentioned, I wish they weren't the 8-bit Do. Now, the reason being that they provide such a comprehensive software that lets you tweak your controller on Android, on PC, and possibly even on iOS. That's exactly what GuliKit would need for 90% of these features to even make sense. Because again, the issue is that while the features themselves are great, you either need to be Einstein or operate with a manual or play Russian roulette by guessing what that shortcut will do when you're trying to make on-the-fly adjustments. My brother that happens to be a great cook once told me, simplicity allows you to appreciate every element of the dish. And when looking at the KK3 Max, it often feels like everything is thrown on a plate without the glue that holds it all together. And so I'll be expecting all the rocks now, but before you throw them, I'd appreciate if some of those pebbles are aimed at the subscribe, like, and comment buttons. Opinions are as they are, but your support is really what makes this worth the time to make those videos for me. Thank you for your support and consideration. And so, how is using it? First, the feel is very much like Xbox Series controller, something many will appreciate. It also has a nice dotted grip in the back, thankfully, as the plastic can feel somewhat a bit slippery at times, but the nice type of slippery, if that makes sense. I guess what I'm saying is the front housing feels very soft and also very matte. To me, it's one of the most unaddressed unique aspects of this product. The KK2 Pro also had a very subtle feel in plastic that is uncommon, and while it feels similar enough, I prefer what they did with the KK3 Max and consider it to be an improvement. Now, the one thing I can't speak on is if the feel has to do with the color or if it is in fact an adjustment they did to their overall production. But what I'm saying is, I like it. Heck, I like it more. I like it a lot. Actually, outside of software, which we don't need to go over again, everything on this controller feels premium. The paddles are metallic, the buttons have a nice glossy finish and looks great. The sticks have nice rings to the edges that offers a very unique sensation and one I probably like more than any controller I tested. They're almost flat, yet just concave enough to offer that nice thumb resting area, but back to the rings, they'll help prevent your thumbs from slipping off. It genuinely is a nice controller all around. The air trigger is a nice touch, but I do feel the need to address, not because I dislike it, but more for managing people's expectations. It is not quite an air trigger like what you find on the DualSense Edge or Xbox Elite controller. Rather, it really transforms your trigger into a button, much like the Switch Pro controller one. In fact, it even brings out what seems to be a tactile button, very much accompanied by a tactile sound. While I won't be opening the controller in this review, I'll probably seek out one that does because I'm extremely curious to see how the mechanical aspect of this trigger actually works. Next is the D-pad, and I'm happy to report it's a nice one. That crown champion in the tactile space still remains Microsoft, as far as I'm concerned, but if that was a tier list, I'd probably slot it in A-, which is definitely up there. It smoothens out on the edges, it has a center pivot, it is slightly recessed in the middle, and provides nice clickiness with an overall nice feel. If I have one complaint about it is that I find a great D-pad needs to have a bit of stopping power. What I mean is, as you're sliding your fingers, you want it to glide, but also want to hold onto the material enough that it doesn't slide off. I'm being super nitpicky here, but yeah, I find this D-pad lacks a bit of that aspect. If not for that, it's near perfect. The moment some of you may have been waiting for, I love rumble. Imagine my surprise when I first powered the controller. I'm big on rumble. This is huge. I'm super excited for that. Man, the rumble feels good. And I had no idea that it used a new type of motor, and right off the bat, rumble aficionados will notice it. So rest assured that it has that quality of, it feels different. So I started with a very basic test, gamepad tester's vibration button. Off of it, I concluded that none of the modes on the KK3 Max feels like the Switch Pro controller, nor does it feel like the series controller one. Instead, it feels like somewhere in between. It has enough of a kick that you'll feel something better than most third parties for sure, but it doesn't rock you like Microsoft's one. It is also noisier than both flagships I compared it to. Next, I went into Mario Kart 8 Deluxe to test this out, and that helped me understand a whole lot more. I'll preface this next statement by saying that the GuliKit KK3 Max has, in my opinion, the absolute best third-party rumble I've ever felt before this one. Rotary and maglev feels essentially the same, but maglev has more depth, more shake, is a tad louder, but overall is just a better experience. But it does not compete with Microsoft's, which is far stronger, but also more silent. Maglev also seems to combine a bit more of the haptic qualities of HD rumble of Joy-Cons and the Switch Pro controller. However, that subtle yet rich vibration seems lost under the more shaky ones of rotary motors. Overall, as I said, it's an improvement. When looking at HD rumble though, the water gets muddied a bit. So the good news is, impressively, the GuliKit does effectively receive and read HD rumble data. Now, some of you have mentioned the MOBA pad to me, which apparently do the same thing. I might test these out at some point. I've reached out to the brand. We'll see if they reach back. For GuliKit, despite doing something I had not seen before it is not the same. Again, it's a resounding better than any third party for sure, but not quite like first party yet. Still, I took my tests a little further with Luminis, an amazing puzzle game that got introduced in early PSP days, and I would say it confirmed my assumptions. I believe that what GuliKit does is have motors that are tweaked to operate at much lower frequencies, so much so that they have the range to match the ones of proper HD rumble, but they are doing it on a different type of motor, a rotary one. Hear the difference for yourself. Someone asked if I could test Splatoon 3. Unfortunately, I do not own this game, and nor did I own Hollow Knight, but I do want to play Hollow Knight someday, so I did get it. With Hollow Knight, I couldn't find anywhere that HD rumble was present in the game, so I thought it'd make for an interesting test. Now, here's something you have to keep in mind with Nintendo's HD rumble. The frequency range still translates to more subtle vibrations regardless of HD being present or not. And so when jumping in Hollow Knight, for example, you have this very minimal, almost indistinct vibration that occurs. That is a perfect example of why I love rumble so much. It effectively creates this physical bridge to the character you play. And having degrees of it conveys various intensities, right? So what happens in non-HD rumble using the KK3 Max? Well, I figured it'd be easier to show you in graph. This chart represents the frequency at which haptics can rumble, okay? The higher the frequency, the stronger the rumble, the lower, you get the gist. If HD rumble on Joy-Cons is about that, I'd say that the Switch Pro controller is about this, whereas the Xbox Series controller is about that, which definitely dominates the upper part of this graph, but offers quite a wide range despite not being HD. DualSense is undoubtedly the controller that conveys the most in terms of rumble, and then when thinking of GuliKit, I'd say Mode 1 does this, Mode 2 does that, and Mode 3 does that. The graph is meant to address vibrations, not dampening of sound. That would be an entirely different chart. So guys, I think that about sums up vibration, and I hope I will have effectively illustrated why you should manage your expectations if you're a big rumble head like me, but also why it does remain a better solution than most. One thing we haven't touched on is the price. By no means is this a cheap controller, and that makes sense as some of its features rivals the DualSense Edge and Xbox Series Elite controller. And the great news is this one usually retails for $100 US, still not cheap, but at $83 that GuliKit's official store currently lists it at on AliExpress, it is a steal. Do keep in mind that they seem to have different kits, so choose wisely on what would appear to be the best one for you. And really, in my experience, it is superior in every way to the KK2 Pro. It does rank high as one of the top PC controllers to date for its balance of features and overall reliability, but if you were looking for a one-to-one Switch Pro controller with added functionality, that is not it. It's the closest I've seen to date though, and the added functionalities are indeed there. A few things we have not mentioned before moving on to the questions. Clef from the future, sorry for the change in visuals and audio. Jesus Miranda or Jesus Miranda asks, can you use amiibos? Yes, the controller is compatible with amiibos, and you can also weight the Switch using the controller. I hope that answers the question. It does have gyro for the Switch, and as quickly brushed over earlier, there is a feature that lets you activate gyro even for PC. They do provide easily swappable buttons to change it to a Nintendo layout or PC Xbox layout. There are no 3.5mm jack or any features of sort. The macro you record on the controller can be saved to your PC using a file sharing method, if only a software was there to accompany that feature, right? All right, questions. BTJ Pyro asks if the rumble is the same for PC. Yes, so as showed earlier in the graph, changing mode effectively changes frequencies of operation. So the point is that all three modes will indeed give you a slight experience versus each other. It is up to the user to pick the one that feels best, but it will not magically convert non-HD rumble to HD if that is your question, nor will it convey HD rumble as great as Joy-Cons and or the Pro controller, but it will do as close as a job I've ever felt in third party. ACs4612 asks if there is profile for Android and or Windows devices. Not in the way that I understand the question. So you have profiles that you can switch to and from by double tapping the button. It'll make you jump from Switch, Android, PC, dongle. Each ones are a profile, but that profile also operates differently at root level. That is not so much profiles in the sense that you mean them, I believe. It's more of a mode switch, whereas a profile would stick to the same mode but change your buttons and settings. I hope this makes sense. Next, Stellarate asks, can you map paddles to any buttons? Yes. Every one of them, including minus, plus, screenshot, and home. The only ones you can't are the cogwheel and the macro button, which serves to activate features and shortcuts. G4R15 asks, no circularity error? Nope. And I went a bit further. The no error was consistent on wired, Bluetooth, and using the dongle, and readings were more frequent as well, except for Bluetooth, which has a lower pulling rate. Red Crimson 1028 asks if I think it is an improvement over the sticks of the KK2 Pro, and my answer is a resounding yes. As I mentioned starting this video, for me the KK2 Pro was not all that it was cut out to be, and amongst the reasons was the sticks, so yes. And last but not least, which I will add to this closing statement, Ali Adams 80 asks if they fixed their myriad of quality control issues. The reality is I wouldn't know a thing about this, and I am disappointed to hear that this seems to be a fairly common issue, or is it? And I don't mean to take away from anyone's voice to be heard. I also have been in the position of finding myself at the end of a bad product, and as much as I think China can output amazing quality of hardware, the customer service experience is too often left to be desired. It doesn't excuse GuliKit, but I should point out that it is also not a GuliKit problem. It is the market as a whole. Same goes for quality control. The same issues that many of you brought to my attention was exactly the same that other brands suffer from. I guess what I'm trying to say here is GuliKit is no exception. It's unfortunate, and believe me, I wish it'd be different. As for me personally, I have not yet experienced those issues with GuliKit specifically, but the issue is not that some products will work, it is that some will not. And for that, there is a factor of chance that I can't speak on as I don't have the number. I'm hoping GuliKit will hear people going through these hardships and that they'll either tighten their quality control or that they will find a way to offer better customer support for international buyers. But to give you an example, guys, my second OTC video, which you can watch right here, is of a product that I paid $600 and I have yet to hear about this company, and I messaged them over a month ago. Another controller where I found excellent experience, both from quality and customer service experience, is EasySMX. If you're looking for an alternate solution until my review that pits all these controllers together in a matchup, I'd recommend watching that video, as it may very well be the controller that you're looking for.